Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me one quick favor, see that little black subscribe button on the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, hit that little black subscribe button. Really does help this channel grow, my audience grow, and I appreciate it more than you know. Also, quick thank you to our presenting sponsor, Betfred Sportsbook and the Betfred Sportsbook app. Bet $50 on any game. Get up to $1,111 in free bets courtesy of the Betfred Sportsbook. Thank you again. Now, here's the video that you came here for. All right, let's keep it going. Texas A&M is fascinating. You know who else is fascinating going into this season? How about the Alabama Crimson Tide? Their over-under is 10.5 in the Betfred Sportsbook. And it's interesting, right? Because a couple things. One, the money is actually coming in on the under at minus 175. It's plus 150 to bet the over. But why it's so interesting is this really does feel like the first year, maybe in forever, that people are really doubting Nick Saban. And I know we've had those moments in time, the dynasty's dead, the this, the that. The dynasty's dead stuff usually happens early in the season. Take a weird loss. Oh, they'll never recover. And then they always do. This year is different, though. Remember, last year, they had the number 1 pick in the draft, Bryce Young. The number 3 pick in the draft, Will Anderson. Maybe the most talented roster Nick Saban's ever had. And they did go 11-2. But you can also argue that they were a little bit disappointing, all things considered. Lose to Tennessee, lose to LSU. And even though Nick Saban wants to tell you, we lost our only 2 games on the final play of the game. They also won on the final play of the game against Texas A&M, needed a goal line stand against Ole Miss, struggled against Texas, and who knows what happens if Quinn Ewers doesn't get hurt in that game. And so I bring it up because I do think it was a disappointing season for Alabama, not just because they were 11-2, not just because they didn't win the SEC West, didn't play for a playoff berth, an SEC title, nothing, but also just because the product wasn't what we expected. And so they go into the offseason, hire 2 new coordinators. Tommy Rees is there to bring in the physical run game. And also on top of that, of course, Kevin Steele is back to bring some physicality back to the defense. Now, in terms of questions coming into the year, we all know what the biggest one is. It's at quarterback. And again, I get it. One thing on this show, I try to be real with you guys and girls. I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it and say everything's perfect in Tuscaloosa. And I get the concern because really, for the first time since the pre-Jalen Hurts era, we're talking about uncertainty at the quarterback position at Alabama. We're talking about a program. We saw Jalen Milroe last year. It wasn't always pretty. Ty Simpson, apparently he struggled at various points throughout spring ball. Obviously, those 2 guys struggled to a degree. Otherwise, Tyler Buchner doesn't transfer in. And so that's where the concern comes in with Alabama. Tyler Buchner wasn't going to win the starting job at Notre Dame. And if Tyler Buchner wasn't going to win the starting job at Notre Dame, what does it say about the fact that he could win it at Alabama? So I get the concern, but let me play devil's advocate and talk about the other side with Alabama. One, whoever wins the starting job at quarterback, I do think will have plenty of talent around them. And I know the O-line's been disappointing the last couple of years. The wide receiver room outside of Jamison Williams has been disappointing 2 seasons ago. But I think we'll see some improvement. Again, a re-emphasis on physicality, on the run game, on the O-line. Go back to the Bill O'Brien era. We talked about it on this show. We talked about it on the Aaron Torres pod. It just felt like there was no kind of rhyme or reason to what the offense was or what it was about or what it was supposed to be. That ain't going to be the case with Tommy Rees. They're going to run the ball right at you, and they're going to reestablish that line of scrimmage and physicality up front. Plenty of running back depth. Jace McClellan is back. He was phenomenal last year as Jahmyr Gibbs' backup. Roydell Williams, I'm excited about. Also, Justice Haynes, remember, a star in the spring, true freshman. And I do think that wide receiver room, I think somebody steps up. Listen, my stance on the wide receiver room. People say, oh, Alabama, their wide receivers stink. And what I say to that is like, are we really supposed to believe? Are we really supposed to believe that over the course of the last 3 recruiting cycles, that Alabama has missed on every single wide receiver recruit that they've signed? I don't believe it. I think part of it was the offense. And I think when you look at Ja'Cory Brooks, 39 catches last year, Kobe Prentice is back. A couple other guys are back as well. Jermaine Burton, obviously. I think somebody establishes themselves as the alpha. I think they'll be okay. Defensively, here's the other thing defensively. we focus so much on the quarterback position. We focus everything that went wrong. And what's crazy is when you think about that defense last year, what do you think about? Disappointing, didn't live up to expectations. You probably think about Tennessee, Hendon Hooker throwing the ball all over the field. Probably think about Quinn Ewers in that first half. And you think of chaos for that Alabama defense. You know what's crazy about Alabama's defense? Finished 13th nationally in total defense, 9th nationally in scoring defense. So they had a top 10 scoring defense against the likes of Texas, Tennessee, LSU, Ole Miss, Kansas State in the bowl game. Reinforcements came in via the recruiting class as well. That's probably worth mentioning. Looked it up, had kind of forgotten this. How about this? Not only maybe the best class in the history of college football, 4 separate 5-star defensive linemen are coming in. Those guys will shore up that defensive front. Dallas Turner is obviously back after a phenomenal sophomore season a year ago. 8 tackles for loss, 4 sacks. Jaheim Oates up front is a monster. Again, depth via that freshman class. Do like the linebacker group. And then on top of that, I think the defensive back group was really fortified in the transfer portal this offseason. Trey Amos comes in from Louisiana Lafayette. Jaden Key, an all-conference guy from Conference USA and UAB. I really like this group. Final couple thoughts on Alabama. One, something to consider. That schedule that was brutal last year. Well, guess what? All those really tough games from a year ago, Texas, Tennessee, LSU, they were all on the road. They're at home this year. You know what Alabama's road schedule is in the SEC this season? At Kentucky, at Mississippi State, at Kentucky, at Mississippi State, at Auburn, at Texas A&M. Kentucky's good, Auburn's good, A&M's good. Even Mississippi State's good. But that's about as favorable as an SEC road schedule as you can ask for. And so I look at this Alabama team. I am not going to officially bet the over of 10.5. I think the over hits. I think they figure out the quarterback position. I think it's less on the quarterback in general, and he's got so much talent around him. And I also just think Nick Saban, he's not having it. He revamped everything this offseason, 2 new coordinators. He ain't putting up with the nonsense he did a year ago. I'm excited about this team, and I think between the schedule and kind of the mindset, I expect this team to be much improved.